Because I've got you, I've got you. You're looking at the stars and you feel it in your heart.
Hello, my name is Darren Spiller. I'm the creative marketing consultant at Mushroom Creative House. Today I'm going to talk to you about how MCH was able to defy the pervading trend of inertia to create change for brands and the industry at the speed of culture, even as the rest of the world stood still. And how all of this was achieved through the deployment of the music industry. So I'm going to do a little key talk about the speed of culture, which I think is a really important part of the world in which we live if we want to communicate well, especially for brands. So based on culture is all about based on what's happening now, not yesterday and not next year. It's all about timing. What was a great idea last year may not be a great fit this year. With the speed of technology, our social behaviours are changing at the speed of light. To that, add a global pandemic that changed the fabric of society and the economy. And as a result, all our perceptions, our social norms and behaviours are being continually altered. The question is, how can brands navigate this and lead the consumer through the social change? The insight here is that people do not follow brands, they follow culture. And this is a really key thing. Brands that understand that tap into it and lead the way forward. Culture is the Trojan horse, and that horse moves very quickly. That means tapping into tech advancements, entertainment trends, celebrity trailblazers, popular social phenomenon, or political behaviour shifts. They are the trend, the moment, the now. They are the speed at which culture travels. Whatever it is, you need to tap into one of them to stay or become relevant. And the fast track into that culture and its benefits is the power of music. Music is culturally embedded into our everyday. It captures our attention, it makes us feel, but most of all, it makes us listen. Listen to what brands want to tell them and then remember it and buy in long after the interaction is over. It's no use talking to somebody that remember you for 5 minutes. It's about the next stage of that, days, weeks, months down the track. Whatever the brand's message, reinforcing its brand values, creating brand empathy, building relevance, disrupting the status quo, changing a perception, or simply feeding brand fame. Music is your shortcut to helping you achieve that goal. I'm going to show you a few examples now, which I think have done it really, really successfully. Brands that have tapped into music and music artists to achieve their goals. So it wasn't long ago we were faced by a completely different world phenomenon, and it was called the GFC. And the results of that, or the negative results of that, reverberated around the world for quite a few years to come and hit a number of different industries. So for this one in particular, the problem as a result was that American manufacturing was deep in trouble, and its homegrown brands had started to lose their way. Nowhere was this more evident than in the car industry. Americans were losing confidence in what America made. The population were looking across the Pacific and the Atlantic for its preferred car brands. Due to this change in attitude, the car manufacturers and the Motor City itself were left reeling from this cultural trend. The solution was that the Chrysler car brand decided to harness what was still great about America to achieve its goals and its visual survival, very survival. Its homegrown celebrities would be used to remind people that great still came from that country. And in this case, it would be in the form of Eminem. More pointedly, Eminem was a reminder that great things came out of Detroit, the heart of American car manufacturing. His persona was one that transcended barriers and epitomised the dream of American success. He was a shortcut to presenting the values of a future successful, confident Chrysler on the rise. A living, walking proof that Detroit still had what it takes to be great. After all, wasn't he out there doing exactly that? And wasn't he quite prepared to be involved with another hometown legend? He was an amazing cultural fit, and that's another really important point. You've got to get this thing right, and when you do, it takes off and success follows. Chrysler had determined that American culture was going to help put the swagger back into American brands and manufacturing. The power of music and all it represented was the perfect accomplice to achieve just that. We might play the video now just to give the guys an example of what I'm talking about.
What does this city know about luxury? Huh? What does a town that's been to hell and back know about the finer things in life? Well, I'll tell you, more than most. You see, it's the hottest fires that make the hardest steel. Add hard work and conviction, and the know-how that runs generations deep in every last one of us. That's who we are. That's our story. Now, it's probably not the one you've been reading in papers. The one being written by folks who've never even been here and don't know what we're capable of. Because when it comes to luxury, it's as much about where it's from as who it's for. Now, we're from America, but this isn't New York City, or the Windy City, or Sin City, and we're certainly no one's Emerald City.
This is the Motor City, and this is what we do.
So, as a summation, by tapping into M&M's unique origins it shared with the car company, Chrysler instantly reignited a sense of pride for American ingenuity, American made, and American values, all of which were part of the ethos of the brand. Another example, a little bit closer to home and a little bit more now with what we've just been through. The example is music from the home front. If you backtrack 12 months ago, 2020 was a year like no other in living memory. Welcome to the unknown. The problem here was that the world was down, the mood of Australia was low, brands were in a flux. To do something and risk being labelled opportunistic, or to do nothing and risk getting left behind. It's a conundrum that brands often face. With this sudden change, Aussies were craving comfort and nostalgia from a world they thought they were actually losing. The question posed was, what could pull us together, give us direction and comfort, and something that we could rally behind? What we all had in common was a front line. Our frontline workers were risking all to keep us safe from what was actually terrorising the rest of the world in a bigger way, and we didn't want it to come here. At Mushroom, we knew that music was the great cultural unifier to honour our frontline workers, raise our country's spirits, deliver comfort, and give brands a relevant outlet for their brand aspirations without any risk at all. A stage that provided proof of an empathetic allegiance to its consumers for brands that were rudderless in uncharted waters. They were losing their connection with the consumers. This is not good for brands. So there had to be a way that they could connect and not risk being labelled opportunistic. This was when music from the home front was born. The solution was an alliance of Australia's music talent brought together, coordinated, filmed in their own homes and edited all in 9 days. to create one of Australia's most viewed music programs of all time. I'm going to play you this little film, guys.
Mysterious pneumonia outbreak in Wuhan, China.
A new type of coronavirus.
The number of affected countries has tripled.
Many workers have no money coming in, with scores of cancelled events and festivals.
Gatherings are restricted to 10 persons.
An estimated $100 million in lost income, and this is, of course, just the tip of the iceberg.
The World Health Organization has just declared that this is a pandemic.
The show will go on.
Music from the home front. The music from the home front.
Welcome to Music from the Home Front.
If the community needs something in any way, shape or form, this bloke is front and centre. Michael Kaninsky.
It's been a work of love, and it's for the frontline workers who, similar to the Anzacs, are risking their lives every single day.
We just want to give a big shout out to everybody on the front line.
Sending out love to all the frontline people.
I hope you're all staying safe and staying at home.
Big thank you to all the healthcare workers on the front line.
On behalf of everyone at Macca's, we want to say a big thank you
to all the essential healthcare workers for working tirelessly to keep us safe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
They stood up and they did what had to be done.
It's great to see this music community come together.
We also got to be together even though we're apart.
So brands they found a way to feel very, very comfortable in thanking the frontliners through an actual program that was called Music from the Home Front. There are two very different examples there of the way you can use music for brands, or to change a tone of voice, or to get a message across. And in this particular one, Music from the Home Front also gave brands like Macca's and AAMI or AMI a home to create empathy with their consumers through a difficult time without risk of being labelled disingenuous. Another example, Melbourne pop-up live concerts. I absolutely love this one. It was so spontaneous in a world that had become not very spontaneous at all. And the problem here was that the city of Melbourne had lost its mojo in the eyes of the consumer. This city had spent years building its reputation as a very, very exciting city, a city on the world stage. A city once known for cafes spilling onto the streets and live music. Performances everywhere, down every alley and pub corner had ground to a halt. Where was the magic? Asked the consumer. Why would I go there? It's a waste of land now. It's devoid of culture, people and surprises. There's nothing on anymore. That attitude exacerbated the problem. How could the office of the City of Melbourne overcome this COVID obstacle? The solution was that Mushroom tapped into its vast array of connections to create pop-up concerts and gigs, a stunt that quickly became a cultural phenomenon that surprised and delighted those who were brave enough to enter the CBD and sample what it still had to offer. With what grew into a PR dream for the City of Melbourne, the word was out. The population started to return in the hope of enjoying a spontaneous, intimate concert from such fame feeders as Tones and I out in front of a restaurant, or Jimmy Barnes on the Yarra River Bridge, and the likes of the Rubens on street corners, just to name drop a few. Pop-up gigs tapped into a cultural mood and created a solution by using the world of music to once again bring excitement to a city that had been on its knees. The result delivered optimism, excitement, and spontaneity back to Melbourne. The rest of the country looked on in envy at the city that did it the hardest and were breaking all rules to show that it was back. Let's play a little video.
Melbourne is fast finding its voice again, with city diners treated to a surprise pop-up music performances.
This could be the time. This could be the time of my life.
We had people standing up, waving their arms in the air, singing as a chorus.
Legendary musicians, and they've missed working and playing to people so much.
Couldn't contain the excitement of the crowd.
This could be the time. This could be the time.
So, what was the summation of that? Through spontaneous pop-up live music throughout the city by well-known artists, the Melbourne brand demonstrated it was still the exciting, optimistic and surprising place to go. Another one of these guys was the sound. The problem here was that Australians sat demotivated in their homes, flats and apartments, missing their lives, their favourite venues and friends. The businesses and industries they frequented began to fall by the wayside. The two needed each other to survive. There was a codependence on one another. As both entities were kept apart, a collaboration was taking place to ease the hurt and the distancing that COVID had created. Some relief for one and a reminder from the other that they were actually still around waiting for you to return to them as consumers. The solution was a collaboration driven by Michael Gudinski, Mushroom and the ABC, which was created to fill a void. Its intent was to give Australians some heart that the music they loved and the venues they pined for were all still here and still a big part of their lives, waiting for them to return and be reunited. It was from this cultural reality that the music show The Sound was created. It was a connection to the outside world. Guys, do you want to play this one?
Hello, I'm Jane Gazzo.
Hey, this is Kylie.
Hey, we're DMAs.
I'm Paul Kelly.
I'm Illy.
I'm Julia Stone.
This is TK Maidza.
This is Stones and I.
This is Guy Sebastian.
Hey, I'm Amy Shaw.
My name is John Butler.
And welcome to The Sound.
The sound, the sound, the sound, oh, I never get the sound.
It's been great to see Australian music champion in such a tough time for all of the live industry.
It feels like old school, but entirely fresh, and one of the things we all need right now, so way to go, The Sound.
The summation here was branded venues across Australia and the live music industry itself were able to send a positive message of hope and resilience in the face of COVID by harnessing music artists to deliver that message. On an ongoing basis, it became a constant to look forward to when everything else was changing. One last example here is Snoop Dogg, the Menu Log campaign. Absolutely brilliant example of this. The Menu Log brand was devoid of personality at the time. In fact, it was thought of as daggy by consumers, not an enviable position to be in. They were being outshone and outspent by their nearest competitor, and to top it all off, their greatest executional hurdle to overcome was one of their most recognisable assets, their jingle, which caused irritation for its audience. To add to this sobering reality, COVID had raised its ugly head. The solution? The conundrum was simply solved by introducing Snoop Dogg along with the Snoop world and everything it had to offer and represent for the brand. Snoop himself was charged with rewriting the jingle and embodying the brand with his personal taste and style, bringing street cred to a brand whose survival was cast on the street. The question, however, remained, when was the right time to launch it? What was going on in the world at that moment? The decision was made by the team that Menu Log would be the deliverer of optimism and entertainment when they felt the Australian population had had enough of being starved of that joy. When they felt that time had arrived, Menu Log and Snoop hit the market to change the delivery brand landscape. The campaign was then localised as it rolled out around the world, forging relationships with entities like NRL in Australia. A fine example of tapping into someone else's cred to build your own, combined with the perfect time to create a sensation. Menu Log used a shortcut to gain relevance and empathy with its audience. A sure way to outsmart, not outspend. Want to play this one?
Sick of this. Get Menu Log on the line.
We're gonna do this doggy style.
Did somebody say menu log?
Me, get delivery like a G. See, hungry dogs gotta eat. I get mines every day, every week. Chicken wings to the crib, I'm sitting in. Burger in the low. Hope they put the pickle in. Wonton on a catamaran. Oodles and noodles, thank you, my man. Tacos to the chateau. Please, did somebody say menu log? Private jetting in the night sky. My man hand glide by with my fried rice. Right? What could you not love? About a slice on the side of the hot tub. What you gon' do, boo? Chocolate fondue right on cue. Even dipping in the sea. I see food, seafood sees me. MENULOG.
Somebody say menu log.
Okay, so for Menulog, Snoop bought instant street cred and fame. He ensured that Menulog was top of mind, front of mind, and on their mind, especially in a time when not a lot of joy was being delivered. So, music is your accomplice, but the brand is always the hero, your shortcut to tapping into the speed of culture and the success it affords. It helps brands gain cut-through, demonstrate relevance, empathy, and modernity. It makes messaging memorable and ideas powerful. What more could a brand ask for from an accomplice? Thank you. Okay, we're going to go to a panel, and I'm going to ask some very intelligent questions that a lot of other people have written, but very, very relevant. And on my panel here is Fiona Bateman, who's head of brand Menulog. Susan Heyman, who's in Sydney at the moment and broadcasting down. She's the Managing Director of Chug Entertainment, which is part of the Mushroom Group. Tom McDonald, to my right here, is the Head Creative at MCH, or Mushroom Creative House. And Carl Richter, Founder, Owner of Level 2 Music. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Tom.
So I've got a few questions. Tom, you were lead creative for Music from the Home Front, both last year and again just last week. Why do you think that particular project resonated so well with the audience in 2020 at the height of the pandemic?
Yeah, I think it's a perfect example of creating at the speed of culture. It was literally, and as you touched on, 9 days, and it had happened as the global pandemic hit. Our business, half of our business, the live business, went to a halt instantly. We're at a point of time where there was a lot of uncertainty, and typically, and as the music industry likes to do, but more so Michael Gudinski likes to do, is to react to that, to move quickly and to look at ways that we can support the community. And I remember that point of time when he called us. There was 9 days out, and I said to him, "You're crazy," and I said, "Give me more time."
As many other people have said.
Constantly. He gets that a lot. He just laughs louder. But that was the point. We talk about creating at the speed of culture. It was creating around that magic moment of time. If we gave that 4 or 6 weeks, it wouldn't have had that sense of community. It had to be in 9 days. And Michael was very genius in the sense that he wanted to tie it to the Anzac spirit. That then connected to what it was as the frontline community and about giving back. And the music industry is so good at that. It's not only so good at creating at the speed of culture and creating at such quick turnarounds, but it's great at supporting the community, and that sense of community was everything around the success of that project.
I agree.
And that, as you touched on with brands, for us, it's so easy to tap into those situations and try to find a way to shortcut to be a part of it. But for us, and we have very close relationships with our brands, it's all about the authenticity. When we threw that out, there was 9 days to turn around their support on that project. And we know that sometimes in brand space it's not that easy to turn around that quickly, but when you have that trust, when you have that understanding, they're willing to get behind and support it. And I'll say it a lot today, and I say it a lot in the industry, authenticity is everything. And the audience, they'll look for that, and in that case, that message that we were sending about the event was supported by those brands and consistent with what the brands wanted to say.
Yeah, it's a real entry point for brands, going through the music industry to get to the artists.
Definitely.
Carl, you've worked with many brands and content. What does creating at the speed of culture mean to you, and why do you think the music industry does this so well?
Well, I think
there's a couple of things really, as Tom actually pointed out, and also what was in your presentation. Music really is a shortcut. So it's a shortcut to the understanding that the brand has for the consumers and the people that are watching. So if you can connect with your consumers through the music, then you already got half the job done. And I think that's one of the things. The other thing, and it was brought up in one of the panels earlier on today, was that artists and bands are also in the business of creating their own brands. Yeah. And they've got a trajectory, and they're at a particular part of the process, their career. Now, if you can match that trajectory and you can have a look and see a way in which the brand can be aligned, then magic happens. And then the other thing too is that artists are really, they're in the business of looking up around the corner, what's next? And if you can connect in that way, and through actually connecting, create something new, and Menulog's a fantastic example of that, then you're creating culture as you go. You're not just tapping into it. And you know, that's really pretty amazing when that happens.
Again, it's a really great example. But you know, the chances are you can also build each other's brands if you do it well, if it's a perfect fit.
Definitely.
Yeah, I think it's all about alignment, and again, that's been spoken about a little bit today too. Yep. But that's heavily nuanced, and that requires a lot of work.
I'm going to throw one to Suze now. Suze, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Great. As a managing director of one of the largest touring entertainment businesses in Australia, I imagine part of your role would require you to stay on top of the music trends and cultural shifts. How quickly do you think trends move, and what do you do to stay on top of them?
I think for us, staying on top of the trends is really about just keeping an eye on music media, seeing what's being released, talking to all of our trusted sources. But the challenge for us as tour promoters really is that we need to have the actual humans present to do our business, which means we have to fall at a point of their cycle that works for them, and that can be different for every artist. So we might be promoting a tour and selling tickets 3 months out. We might be doing it 12 months out. It could be at the beginning of an album campaign, at the end, or with no album cycle at all. So that can be really challenging for staying on trend and responding to market forces when we're having to just make do with when the artist is available. But that's also when I think brands become really valuable. Our business is unique in that our inventory is limited and it has an expiry date. So, you know, a ticket's not worth the paper it's printed on once the show's over. So we have to be really commercial and mindful about how we market and promote tours, and having brands on board can really help us to extend how our budgets are spent and how our tours are marketed for an extended campaign if we need to be in market for a long time.
Okay. So, you know, just on that, like sometimes there's artists who are booked at 6 to 12 months out before they come and perform here. Do you think connecting with a brand for them can actually keep them relevant right through that time? So by the time they get here and perform, they're still on top because they've been out in the marketplace in a big way.
Absolutely. Our budgets are limited to market tours, and you know, having a brand that has something like a retail point of sale position or a digital strategy that actually extends that campaign, we oftentimes will only market for 2 or 3 weeks around those key milestones of announcing a tour or running pre-sales. And if you've got something that keeps the artist and the tour and tour information present in the market for months at a time, or can bring things back into the front of people's minds a few weeks out from the tour, whether there's activations or promotions that start running that just clean up, remaining inventory, it can be really valuable and really key to us managing our budgets.
Yeah, great. I mean, that's the thing about, brands. A lot of brands don't know that artists are really keen for this sort of connection to happen because they can benefit out of it as well. It's not just the brand getting a benefit. If, again, back to Carl's point, it's the right fit. Fiona, this is a long question. You were the local brand lead for the Menulog Snoop Dogg collaboration. Well done, by the way. That launched at the height of COVID. That must have felt like an incredible risk to launch then, given most brands were focused on schmaltzy, we're all in this together kind of thing, advertising at the same time. Can you walk us through your thinking on deciding to launch at this time and why you think this paid off so well?
Yeah, I mean, we had the Snoop campaign ready to go as COVID hit. And when COVID hit, we did have like multiple discussions about whether it would be the right time, whether it be insensitive, and also selfishly with the news agenda kind of being so serious, would anyone even notice if our campaign went live or not? So we had those discussions internally, and we monitored the situation those early weeks of COVID daily to kind of see what the sentiment of the nation was like. Like as soon as it sort of started feeling like people were getting a little bit tired of the doom and gloom, and we're looking for some sort of light entertainment to kind of escape from it. And also there was kind of a lot of chatter about the samey adverts that said we're all in this together, being disingenuous. We felt like it was a good opportunity for us to launch the Snoop campaign, which is in its essence just light entertainment and very entertaining. And on top of that, the other kind of opportunity that was too good to miss really was the fact that lots of our competitors and other brands in the industry pulled above the line spend completely. So it was a real opportunity for us, a brand without the biggest budgets in the competitive landscape of food delivery, to have a dominant share of voice and share of spend at that time. Yeah. So it was a no-brainer with all those.
I think that's what works so well for it though, is that if you take it down to the core of it, it's a very standard approach of going, we'll get an ambassador, we'll do a jingle. It's actually not taking the piss out of that whole marketing point. But that point of time is what made it so successful, because it was the opposite to everything else in market. And I think that that's what made it stand up and add so much value back to the brand and to that partnership, and especially Snoop. Like, he works perfectly for that. And the execution, you always have to get the execution right to be able to have that connection, and yeah, I think is a big part of the success.
Yeah, COVID was like a perfect storm for us, to be honest.
Definitely.
So yeah, we had this campaign, it was great,
Delivery
but also
service.
delivery was sort of starting to be seen as an essential service. So it was really that springboard that we wanted and needed, and was great for us.
Definitely.
So I'm not going to let you get out of it. So what do you think an ambassador like Snoop brings to the menu of the brand? I think this is what marketers want to hear, really.
Yeah.
What did it do?
So Snoop's kind of personal brand, the reasons people love him and they feel kind of this warm, fuzzy nostalgia towards him and stuff like that, has definitely rubbed off on our brand. If we look at the brand tracking metrics, like we have improved drastically for imagery statements like, is this brand cool, or is this brand trendy, and is it on the way up? And undoubtedly that is the sort of power of Snoop that has done that for us. So we have definitely borrowed some of his street cred and hopefully got a bit of our own.
Okay. Let me see. Suze, I've got another one for you actually. Is it fair to say that COVID turned the music industry upside down? How did you and your team adapt, and what opportunities arose because of that?
100% fair to say. I think particularly the touring business, we were probably the first to go down, and we'll probably be the last to come back up. Yeah, we definitely had to pivot. That's the word of the year, I think, pivot, to move with the challenges of the time and do what we do in a different way. But essentially at our core, we promote artists and we connect artists to an audience, and that's what we've had to do, just a different way. And the opportunity to work on projects like the Sound and Homefront gave us that opportunity to connect with an online or a television offering and still create content that was compelling and fresh and kept fans engaged. And I think when the content is memorable and shareable particularly, it's going to help creating a deeper connection between the artists and their audience. And that long vision is that continues to help building their fan base and will come through into ticket sales and touring when they're ready to go out on the road again. I think just staying present in the market is important so that when touring does come back, these artists haven't lost the connection to their fans.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's also just been a really good time for Australian artists, I think, to be on the front line of brand and content opportunities. The local focus that has come from the COVID challenges has definitely been a silver lining for a lot of industries, and good for our local industries to be able to support them.
Yeah, I think, look, it's a fine example of an industry not just talking the talk but walking the walk. I mean, the changes that it had to make with what was happening in culture were quite incredible, and well done, industry. Okay, Tom, you were the lead creative, as I said before, on the home front last year and again, just last week. Why do you think that particular project resonated? And what was there anything you would change or do it in a different way?
Well, we had 2 weeks this year, and I don't think there was anything I could change. But look, I think for us, it's really about a lot of learnings that we got out of the last 12 months. And again, when we talk about the speed of culture, I probably refer to the speed of the music industry as well, and how that can be a benefit back to the brand space when we talk about that specifically today. And I think Carl talked about it before. It was touching on, you know, we're in an industry where we build brands every single day. And not only we just build brands, we're having to act in a way of creating culture as a part of that. You know, we're creating artists, we're creating festival brands, we're creating tours, we're creating brands within themselves. So that learning over the last 12 months in an industry that already moves at rapid pace was how we could then adapt and work in the brand space. And we talk about the support and home front, we talk about dropping campaigns at the right time. And I think the biggest thing that we're now talking with brands is being able to act and work with us at the pace that we do. And that allows you to tap into that culture at that point of time. And I think the big thing is the industries and the brand space specifically have become more nimble, but have learnt to become more nimble because they understand the value of that acting at that point of time. And I think the last 12 months has accelerated that massively. We are used to working at that pace, probably not to the intensity that we have in the last 12 months, but brands are ready to catch up. They want to catch up. They want to be a part of that. And I think that is going to allow music, entertainment space, the brand world to work more coherently.
Yeah, because they're already working at that space, at that pace.
Exactly.
Which is really interesting to be able to tap into culture. Carl, I'm going to ask you a question. What are the options for sourcing music for sync in content?
Yeah, so Level 2 Music is a music supervision company. Our job is to take a brief and then find the right music, the right act, to go with the idea, the brand, the DNA, and to look at how that matches up. The ways that you can go and find that music is you know, there's numerous. So it can be through the rights holders, the publishers, the record labels. There's also companies, rep companies that just look after bands specifically for the purpose of sync.
Yep.
And then there's independent acts that might have management companies. And then, you know, you can just go online as well and find direct through Triple J Unearthed or just a band that you like the look of. The interesting thing, though, is that behind every one of these songs and every one of these artists, there's copyright. And copyright is owned by someone or is controlled by someone. And so the balance there between finding the right song, the right artist, but then also being able to align to budget and to media and all those sorts of things, that's where the challenge comes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, having been in the advertising industry a long time over the years, and we've worked on a number of things together.
Yep.
You know, often the big songs come to mind, and people want to get these big songs in and pay for that and so forth and so on. What would you say to marketers about up-and-coming artists?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think particularly for TV campaigns, music plays a number of different roles. It can either be an extra character, it can be part of the narrative, it can be one of the key moments that you connect with the song itself, or it needs to be there just as a device against picture. So often a big song might be distracting. It might actually defer from your message.
Yeah.
I mean, you have something like Snoop and then it's like just omniscient, you know, it's just there everywhere and that's fine. But I think for an independent act or looking at independent copyrights, it's not just about budget, it's actually about, again, that shortcut to saying, yes, we understand our audience. You don't need to necessarily know the song or the artist, but you can understand that the music's the right fit.
Yeah, the emotion, the purpose of it being that can add, definitely.
Fiona, so in your mind, what are the parameters or the things you think about when you're choosing the right artist for your brand?
Yeah, I mean, I would say to your point earlier as well, like, you know, their attributes have to kind of be aligned with your brand attributes. You know, Snoop is cheeky and playful, and that they're all things that we like to think of ourselves as a brand as well. Yep. But also who you're targeting, like, and you know, I have this issue that my target market is anyone with a mouth. So finding an artist has to have that real mass appeal for me, and you know, Snoop really fit that bill because he appeals to the older audience in that kind of nostalgic way where they remember kind of him from before, but also he's still making music that appeals to the youth. So, yeah, it's about finding that fit.
Cool. Suze, you still there?
Yes.
Great. You're one of the most respected tour directors in the business. How important is it to build the relationships with your artists and understand what makes them tick before considering a collaboration with the brand?
Oh, I think first and foremost, we're in a relationship business. That's a given. And with being in a relationship business, it's all about trust. So that is the key conversation piece between an artist and a brand and our representation is trust, especially international artists who come a long way from home and they don't know the market here. So I think it's really important that they trust our recommendations for the market, that it's right for their acts and for their fan base. And I think conversely, we really need to understand who our artist is and how they'll participate so that we can have a really fair discussion with the brand about what they will and won't do. There's a lot of challenges that come in those partnerships where brands want the world and some artists just won't participate. So you really need to think creatively about what can be valuable for them without access to the artist. So I think it's a trust on knowing what suits the artist and audience, but also knowing how to have something that's reasonable and fair and achievable for everyone.
Yep. Okay. I'm going to ask one last question and we're going to go to a few sort of conclusion questions. How important is it to have the artist involved in the creative process, Tom?
Massively. I think just after what Sue said, we're lucky enough where we work with artists day to day. We work on their content, we work on their touring, we work on their video clips. Understanding an artist, and most artists are very creative. They control their brand. They are very involved, especially in this day and age. So they will want to be a part of it all the way through. And again, I'll refer to authenticity. The content needs to make sense, or the partnership needs to make sense to them. If it makes sense to them, it makes sense to the consumer, it has cut through, and then the brand benefits. But it's also very important to align to the brand goals and objectives as well. And I know Carl touched on it. It can be difficult, but if you understand that artist, you're doing most of the legwork there.
Yep.
And it's having those relationships with brands to be able to be in a position to present them ideas that you know is going to work for them as well.
Yeah. And Fiona, Snoop was a perfect example of being intricately involved. I mean, he rewrote the jingle. Is there any advice that you would give other brands on that, being willing to be a part of that and pass on the baton a little bit and not sort of like so tight and trying to control everything?
Yeah, like you have to take the risk when you're dealing with an artist like that because hopefully the benefit outweighs it. And working with Snoop Dogg for us massively paid off, but there was also times where I had to have awkward internal conversations because I'd set up a PR interview on Breakfast TV and he decided to light up. So you have to take the good with the bad. Is that a problem? Not for our brand. We're confident and we stand by him in our advertising.
Suze, is there any advice, just quickly, we've got about 45 seconds, I'd say, in why an artist would actually partner with a brand?
I think what we talked about earlier, if there's a sensible alignment, it can really elevate your campaign. It can be when it comes to touring, a very good commercial decision. But it just is an opportunity to reach a broader audience if you can hit those touch points of the same characteristics between the brand and the artist. I think there can be a lot of value if it's done well.
Great. Brilliant. Guys, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Very good.
Thank you.
The things are